let's say that we end up with a couple of $1 million per Bitcoin being the kind of end state, if you will, right? So
Yeah.
much more valuable than it is today. Do we get institutions to adopt, then, kind of developing nations, and then there's a default and there's an inflection point? Like, how do you think we sequentially get there? What does that like order of operations almost look like?
So great question. So firstly, I'll detail how, or not detail, it'll be a quick explanation of how I get to my $2,000, $2 million or greater per coin. Very simply, today, total global financial assets in the world today are over US $900 trillion. Now that includes all equities, all debt, all currency, all fine art, all gold, 900 trillion US dollars, all real estate. Sorry, I forgot to mention real estate globally. I think that Bitcoin has a chance of becoming the global reserve asset of the world. Why? Because I think oil and natural gas will shortly, and when I say shortly, within the next 10 years, become priced in Bitcoin. Why is that? Well, I'm an engineer. The rule of conservation of energy, you've certainly heard Michael Saylor say that. Oil and natural gas, if you're Russia, do you actually want to sell your valuable natural resources for this thing called a US dollar, which is a programmed to debase fiat currency? Or do you want to hold US treasuries, which is a fiat contract that's also programmed to debase? Or would you like to sell your natural resource energy for Bitcoin, which is digital energy? I think yes. I think over time there will be enough people or nations that want to price Bitcoin or energy in Bitcoin. When that happens, that becomes the reserve asset of the world. So what percentage of the reserve asset does it make sense that $900 trillion could capture? Would it be 5%? I think that's pretty low, but let's assume it's 5% of 900 trillion US dollars. 5% of 900 trillion is $45 trillion. 45 trillion divided by 21 million Bitcoin, that's over $2 million a Bitcoin. Okay, it's that simple. Now, could it go higher than 2 million? Absolutely. Okay, but let's just use $2 million per Bitcoin as a base case scenario. How does it get there? It gets there something like, you have what happens in El Salvador a little bit. And then it gets there because Michael Saylor, the genius of Wall Street, figures that every single corporation should actually issue debt in order to capture a certainty of debate contract in trade for this thing called Bitcoin. At the end of the day, you'll get institutions, you'll have a combination of countries, institutions, hedge funds, all of this will add to a higher price. We've seen it happen before. The reality though, Pomp, is when energy is priced in Bitcoin, that will remove the petrodollar focus. It will become the de facto reserve asset of the world, and you will see a gap up in price that will blow your socks off, in my opinion. Does it have to happen? No. But run some probability analysis on what a $2 million, and that's in today's dollars, what a $2 million price of Bitcoin on an expected value basis needs to be versus Bitcoin potentially going to zero, which I also don't think is like even a price that it'll ever return to. But assume that you have only two outcomes, a binary outcome. One is a price of Bitcoin of zero, and the other one is a price of Bitcoin of $2 million a coin. I'll ask you this question. Would you give me a 10% chance that Bitcoin can go to $2 million a coin if I gave you the 90% chance it goes to zero? And
Sure.
most people would say, yeah, that sounds about fair. And the reality is, well, on an expected value basis for that one calculation, 90 times zero is zero, and 10% times $2 million a coin is $200,000 a coin. Hey, there's another example of why you should be buying Bitcoin today with your eyes closed. Don't overthink this, okay? It's a game of probabilities. It always is a game of probabilities. No one is ever 100% certain about anything in investing except this. I am 100% certain that fiats will continue to debase because they cannot possibly stop printing money due to the DEBT debt spiral that all fiat countries are in today. It is 100% certain mathematically that fiat currencies will continue to debase and will continue to debase on an accelerated basis. Pure math, pure, simple mathematics. Grade 11 type of math is what I like to say, Pom.